Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. I am Canute Ellis, and with me today is none other than Joseph Willet.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Feeling good, man.
Feeling good?
Yes, sir.
Oh, and let me say, we have the classic staple blue cables. These are made by you, right?
Handmade by me.
Yes. So tell us about that.
Um, one
Why
day I
would
was
you-
setting up a show and I got tired of getting my cables mixed up with the other vendors, so all mine were blue. I can always tell them apart.
All right, cool. So who are you? What do you do in this space?
Well, I'm an audio engineer.
Yeah.
Anything that can send or receive sound, I can manipulate. From acoustic things to electronic things to broadcasting, live sound, podcasting, content delivery,
Wow.
the whole night. Literally
Wow.
anything that can send or receive sound, I have extensive knowledge with dealing with it.
Wow. Joe has been a good friend ever since I met him because of his mind. I am so interested in the things that he's interested in, and he takes it above and beyond. And not only a high level of excellence, he's just a down to earth guy. And if you want to talk tech, he will talk tech. And so today, in my world, we're in Joe's world today, and we want to know how did you get started, or how did you get started into audio?
So my career starts all the way back in 2002. In the early days of, I call it consumer digital, when we had Pro Tools LE. Good friend of mine, actually my best friend, Elliot Jefferson, came down to my hometown. I'm from St. Mary's County. And we started becoming friends, and he had Cakewalk. And I'm like, I don't need Cakewalk. I need to
remember
record.
Cakewalk. That's
So
old.
a couple years later, he bought an inbox, and we had Pro Tools, I think 5.3. That's the first version of LE.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't need that. I don't need to record. And one day we just sat in the basement and started playing with, literally recording whole band takes to a 2-track on an inbox. And we realized there might be something to this. So our careers all blossomed, and I became the techie sound guy, who I hang my shingle on it. So
Yeah.
it's my career. So.
Yeah. Wow. And that's been a certain a journey for you. You've since expanded. Like, we could really talk diagrams and float charts. And a lot of people say they're audio engineers, but they're really just Pro Tools engineer.
Right.
You really do the whole gamut. Like, you can do live and you could do studio. Now, you have something unique. Joe has something unique where you a high percentage, and maybe you could tell us a high percentage of what comes out now. You are the recording engineer for those live recordings. Tell us about that.
So one of my specialties is actually live capture. I have a unique approach to recording. A lot of gospel records that have been done lately. If you check the credits,
He's being modest.
I've done a lot of them.
Like all of them, like 90%.
A good portion, and growing. I'm getting better at capturing the moment as they would hear it, because an authentic capture is one that feels like you were there, not just we got it done and we fixed it in post. It's like, wow, we have to really top this moment. It includes everything from making sure that the frequency response of the speakers makes sense, to making sure that everything's routed and patched correctly. And the biggest thing is making sure that they don't hear me being technical. As technical as I am, I'm extremely technical. I try to restrict my work to being creative in their space because they're creative.
Could it be that you're creative because you also play music, right?
Yes.
Is it because of that?
I have some experience as a keyboard player, organist, drummer. I'm like not a studio session drummer. It's like the drummer's late. We have an A and B selection from the senior choir. I'll happily
Joe
step
is
up.
your guy.
I'm serious. Mass
Now,
choir, I'm your
we,
man.
we could go on his IG and we'll see him
Don't do
noodling, noodling
Just
on the
noodling.
drums. But I think that's a great attribute. When I started, somebody told me that I needed to learn to play an instrument and it would help me. And it did, and it is helping me just because you understand the language of music from from the musician perspective. So when you are being technical or you are trying to, at least you could, coordinate with them. Hey, your sound is this way, or this is try this, versus you're just being super technical and not able to communicate with them.
Right. So one of the things to consider is that we're recording individual sources, and you have to literally consider the source. I'm pretty sure that most people don't sit home and listen to the sound of snare bottom for 5 or 6 minutes at a time. It's important because when you're recording close mic sources like drums, it's literally a game of inches.
Yeah.
So in the angle of the microphone, the tightness or looseness of the polar pattern affect how you capture it. And sometimes same mic, different position yields an entirely different result, even if the drummer holds his technique constant.
Yeah.
So sometimes listening to resolve fine differences in mic placement can yield impressive results.
So I've been dying to ask this question, Joe. I knew I was gonna be doing this interview in one of your spaces you are frequent, and I was nervous about just talking with you. Like, what could I really? No, for real. Like, what could I really ask you? Because I could ask you one simple thing, and you'd be like, okay, come on, Canute, just let's get deep. But then, I'm like, I really want to pull so much, but for our viewers, I wanted them to get a taste of what a real engineer is, not a sound guy. Like, I loathe that name because it's diminishing to the point where people just think that we're just knobs and buttons. We're much more than that. You're involved. You are, precise on your, how you mic stuff and all that. But one of my main question I wanted to ask you is, what's your process? Like, I get you to do a live recording. What's your process? Is from I hang the phone up and you go, okay, cool, you're doing this live recording on X date. What's your process? Like, from you get up to your Wheaties to to pulling it off to hand over the product to your client.
So the first thing I do is actually talk to the producer MD and have him or her list every single input and output in the show. We're also considering outputs. For example, a regular stage mix monitor mixer has way more than 3 mixes. You consider if it's Aviom, where things are submixed, that's 16. 16 different sources you have to monitor. Plus you have stage mixes. I use a lot of stage mixes. The last major live recording I did here in the DMV, I had 17 stereo mixes on stage.
Wow.
So that's a lot of outputs. That's
Yes.
34 outputs just going out, and there were 74 inputs.
Yeah.
So think 74 times 34.
Yeah.
And that's how many things I have
That's
to
a
monitor.
lot to monitor.
It's a lot, but it is. But some things you have to consider ahead of time. So once I know what's in and what's out, I go to my computer and I write what's called a show file. This is
I hate to cut you off. He's a beast on show file. Like, Joe, if you call Joe's name, you have to say show file. I'm gonna start calling your middle name Joe show file with it. But continue.
So what happens is one interesting advantage of working in the analog domain, like right now we're at Reed Temple Studio and all of our inputs are analog. One knob has one function, and it can only do that thing now, henceforth, and forever. So if I'm blindfolded and I remember how the console's laid out, I can think in my mind, channel 17, aux 6 is here, and it'll always be there.
Yeah.
Digital consoles don't maintain that muscle memory for you. So, and then you can't see certain things. Certain consoles show things in groups of 12. Some show them in groups of 24. Some show them in groups of 16. Some don't show all their auxes. Some don't show their matrix section unless you go to like a settings menu, like a Digico.
Yeah.
You can't see it till you jump out of your mix. So I don't want to think about that. So things like calibration, routing happen prior to any gain setting, any EQ. I have to be explicit about where everything's routed. For example, I carefully hand select my talkback channel and I unassign it from anything that I wouldn't expect to talk from. Now, if I'm asked to put it there, I can put it there, but now it's an explicit instruction from someone who wants it there, not something that shows up by accident and the lead minister says, I hear you guys cracking jokes on the live stream. True story.
I don't even go into that.
Right.
Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. And we are back. We are in a special episode of In My World, and I'm talking to Joe Willet, and he's telling us about his process. So he kind of skipped past breakfast and when he wakes up, but he's into telling us writing his show file and why it is important not to have a top back mic going into the wedges or to the MD's ears. And it's a true story, and I've lived it, but I won't put you on the spot to tell us about that true story, but I want you to tell us your process from there on in. So you write your show file, and then what?
So I'll write the show file. It starts with a scratch paper, and then I put it in Excel, and then I put it in the editor for whatever console I'm using. After which, I load it. And I don't write my output patches. I write inputs, but don't write outputs because those may change. So it's literally patch safe. So I don't conform the patches until I see what I'm connected to. For example, certain consoles have local patches like at the console, and some have them on the stage box.
Yeah.
If somebody hands me an in-ear transmitter, I don't have to unpatch my rack. It's literally, okay, put it here.
Got it.
So,
that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's where I need it. And I've already written it to be what that is. So I write the show file. We load our gear in, stage it in, prep the session. Everybody sees what everybody else sees in terms of what the microphones are, their input descriptions. My technicians who prep backline will have it done. And literally at that point, it's plug and play. One thing to note is that microphones don't have some abstract gain setting based on the object they're connected to. So this lovely blue microphone, the Blue Encore 200, will make the same amount of gain when positive pressure is applied to pin 2 when it's polarized. This has a preamp in it. This number is relatively constant across consoles. So based on how the analog electronic circuitry is, I can guess where the mics are going to sit in my template. So I will do some of that. And I'll do some basic routing. And sometimes it saves up to 45 minutes to an hour in sound check alone. And because now I've absorbed that time into what I do, when they come on stage, it's usually a little easier. And sometimes I have to, go old school and do it manually. But sometimes, literally it saves time, sound check, 15 minutes for live recording in a room no one's been in. And now they feel more comfortable.
Wow.
So I do the capture. I am almost exclusively an endorsee of a dog called Reaper. Reaper is absolutely part of my process.
We will hear about Reaper from here on in. A good friend of mine, Sydney Thorpe, is a Reaper fan or, a Reaper user for the last decade, I would say. He's been telling me about Reaper, and I was like, Sydney, no, I'm a Pro Tool user. I've been using Pro Tools since 4.9, and he's trying to convince me to use Reaper. So now I have two people in my life that's going to tell me to use Reaper. We'll think about it. But so Reaper is your capture DAW?
Reaper is almost exclusively my capture DAW.
You're joking.
And capture, record, edit, mix. I can stripe tape with it.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious. I almost want to show you, but you can
we're
stripe,
not doing that.
Right. But you can stripe tape with it. And actually, it's the only DAW that can slave to analog simply in Varispeed.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
and I hear it has a great redundancy feature.
Yes, it does. It has built-in ability to record to two separate paths. Pro Tools can do it too.
Mm-hmm.
You have to create double the tracks. Which, say for example, you have 64 tracks in regular Pro Tools. Mm-hmm. You can't have more than 96 voices, so you can't actually be redundant inside the DAW. Yeah. So this, you just say, okay, print it twice, and you have two hard drives, and you have two copies, and you can actually have different file types on each one. Anyway.
So your process is writing your show file. You have it within half an hour. You could get going. It's sound check and all that stuff. Do you now interface with the front of house engineer and the monitor engineer, or are you kind of like just this guy off to the corner that nobody even knows that you're there?
Depends on who hired me.
Okay.
Sometimes I find myself on the island, and I'm the only one who knows what's going on. And at other times where it's my entire crew, and we knew it in the truck what's happening, and we don't even talk. There's some shows where, we have 75, 80 inputs, and we don't even use intercom because everyone knows what everyone knows.
Yeah.
And I can look at you and say, and know that the violin wasn't patched.
Now, do you go through and ring wedges out just for your recording, or
No.
you kind of leave that?
Absolutely not. You've seen it where the guys do the sweep and
Yeah.
doesn't work. Here's why. First of all, if the mic is that close to the wedge, it's supposed to feedback. So if I've reduced those frequencies from the acoustic output of the speaker, those are actually critical frequencies that used to listen. So the goal is to minimize interactions with phase, which is less EQ, which is why I use blue microphones. These exhibit less phase rotation than traditional microphones. And the offset is that I actually use less EQ. And when I use it, it's more purposeful. So I found with these mics, I can actually add the frequencies that I need to enhance the critical frequencies instead of having to build my mix around a 58, which looks like it sounds. It's upside down. It's got a big presence peak, which is good for a speaker that can't reproduce all of its frequencies. But, most things now, most professional things are relatively linear, going in and going out. So you basically start with the blank canvas and then you add what you need.
So in your recording, you are choosing your microphones of what you want that
Yes.
capture to be.
Absolutely. So in this
Okay.
case, feedback is inevitable. There are going to be some frequencies that show up. I usually pick the top 3,
Which
and
are?
whatever they are.
Oh, in that room.
The interaction between the mic and the speaker.
Got it.
And I almost always use stereo wedges. So if they're in pairs, they'll actually have a left and a right. So it sounds really good when you have a Leslie in stereo on stage. They might not get through the second song. Praise break, everyone. So anyhow,
Yeah.
I pick the most problematic frequencies, and usually that's loud enough. And I use the positional references from having stereo pairs to kind of break up feedback nodes. And the offset is that I use dramatically less EQ on stage.
Wow. So now you're off to the races. The show is, going on. You're in the back or wherever you are in your truck and you're recording. What are some of the things you're looking for as a capture artist at that point? Are you looking for just going through soloing each thing just to make it go, or are you just kind of just building the mix and just kind of just waiting for the magic to happen?
Of course, one of the things is don't clip your inputs. There's one notable exception I won't talk about here, but generally speaking, don't clip your inputs. And also, I absolutely do processing on input.
Oh, you do?
Yes,
He's that brave, guys.
Reaper
He's
allows
like
you
that
to
brave.
any platform, any set of plugins. If you like it, you keep it. And I usually restrict it to like some filtering, some very light compression on things that would benefit from compression. I don't compress lead vocals. I don't really compress background vocals much, but things that need to stay put, I'll add a little bit going in, as well as some very gentle expansion on the drum close mics.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Right.
So,
And I track it in that way.
wow.
But
Yeah.
anyway, so very gentle expansion, very light. You almost don't hear it, but you do say, drums sound clean.
Yeah. So now you pay attention to your capture. You're brave enough to add, processing on those elements you spoke about. And so now the night is done and you have your capture. What's your process? Do you back up on 10 drives, or, do you have any other backup other than your DAW?
Yes. I'm actually migrating my backup platform. It's been Elisa's AC24s
Okay.
for all eternity.
I've seen your rig with that.
Right.
It's really nifty.
2020, I'll have Joko.
Look at this guy. He's like, y'all are supposed to be like jumping in your boots. Wow.
So I'll be using Joko BBR box.
Nice. And so that's your redundant
It's
record?
actually, it depends on whether I want to be redundant, because
Okay.
Reaper's redundant by itself. So what I can do in a lot of cases is have an alternate signal path that is just preamp and no flavor from me.
Got it.
And then there's two copies that have my flavor. So if my judgment is wrong, I can just hand them that one.
Got it. And so you're back to your studio. You're previewing your capture. Where do you go from there?
Um, a lot of times I hand the files over at the end of the session, and thus ends the show for me.
Okay.
The integrity of the files is such that they can do what they want with it, especially if they knew the songs and
Mm-hmm.
the room was conducive to the environment they wanted to record. There are some that I record, edit, mix, master, and do the whole nine.
When we come back, we're going to talk about that, but I'm going to put you on the spot, and there is a wrong and right answer. At what sample rate do you record and bit depth?
32K, 8 bits.
We'll be back, kids.